Ambassador Kim Min-jun walked through the massive doors of the Galactic Council chambers. His black suit looked simple next to the colorful robes and strange armor of the other delegates. The chamber was huge, with seats arranged in circles that went up toward the ceiling. Thousands of alien species sat in those seats, all watching him. Kim Min-jun was not a tall man, but he walked with steady steps. His face was calm, even though whispers filled the air around him. The other ambassadors were talking in their strange languages, but he could hear the worry in their voices. The Vorthak Empire had sent their message 3 days ago. It was simple and terrible. They wanted Earth to surrender in 30 days. If humans refused, the Vorthak would come with their war fleets and take everything by force. Kim Min-jun reached his seat and sat down. Around him, the other delegates kept talking. The Zilani ambassador, a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms, looked at him with sad eyes. The Zilani were known for being peaceful. They never fought wars, and they helped other species when they could. The Vorthak Empire is very strong, the Zilani said in their musical voice. Their ships are fast, and their weapons are powerful. Perhaps your people should think about what they are asking. Reflected were Flash, the Vorthak Empire, Allowed Empire. Kim Min-jun nodded politely. Thank you for your concern. We will think about everything very carefully. Near the front of the chamber, the Kragan delegates were laughing. The Kragan looked like large, gray lizards with sharp teeth. They were warriors who respected only strength. Their leader, a massive Kragan with scars across his face, stood up to speak. The humans are fools, the Kragan said, his voice loud and rough. We have seen their ships. They are small and weak. We have seen their weapons. They are simple and old. The Vorthak will destroy them in 1 day, maybe less. Other delegates nodded. Many species in the galaxy knew about human technology. It was not bad, but it was not special either. Humans had been in space for only 200 years. Most species had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. The Morphic Collective sent their thoughts directly into the minds of everyone in the chamber. The Morphic were beings of pure energy who could change their shape. They rarely spoke with voices. We feel sadness for the human species, their thoughts said. But the Galactic Council cannot interfere in conflicts between member species. This is the law. We cannot send ships to help Earth. Kim Min-jun listened to all of this without changing his expression. Other human diplomats might have argued or begged for help. They might have offered trade deals or promised favors. Kim Min-jun did none of these things. The council session continued for 2 hours. Delegate after delegate spoke about the situation. Some expressed sympathy for humanity. Others talked about the Vorthak Empire's long history of conquest. A few species mentioned their own experiences fighting the Vorthak and losing. The Aquatic Federation had lost 3 water worlds to the Vorthak. The Silicon Brotherhood had given up an entire star system rather than fight them. Even the proud Avian republics had signed peace treaties that gave the Vorthak mining rights in their territory. The Vorthak do not negotiate, said the representative from the Crystal Communes. They demand surrender, or they bring destruction. There is no middle choice with them. Through all of this, Kim Min-jun sat quietly. He took notes on his small electronic pad. Sometimes he nodded when another delegate spoke to him directly. But mostly, he just listened. Finally, the council speaker called for him to address the chamber. Kim Min-jun stood up slowly and walked to the center of the room. A circular platform lifted him up so everyone could see him clearly. Honored delegates, he said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's sound systems. I thank you for your time and your words today. The human government has heard the Vorthak Empire's demands. We are considering our response carefully. He paused and looked around the chamber. Thousands of alien eyes watched him. Some looked sad, others looked curious, and a few looked amused. I have one request to make of this council, Kim Min-jun continued. In the coming weeks, there may be conflict in the Outer Rim territories. Regardless of what happens, there will be beings who need help. I ask that all member species prepare medical aid stations and relief supplies along the major space routes in that region. The chamber fell silent. This was not what anyone expected to hear. The Kragan delegate laughed loudly. Medical aid stations? The Kragan said. Do you plan to surrender so quickly that you need hospitals for your wounded pride? Other delegates looked confused. The Zelani ambassador leaned forward in their seat. Ambassador Kim, are you expecting civilian casualties? Are you planning to evacuate your colonies? Kim Min-jun shook his head. I am simply asking that medical facilities be ready for anyone who might need them, human or otherwise. This confused the delegates even more. Why would humans worry about enemy casualties before a battle even began? It made no sense to anyone in the chamber. The council speaker, an ancient being whose species was so old that no one remembered their original name, spoke with a voice like wind through leaves. The human request is noted. Any species wishing to provide medical aid may do so according to their own laws and customs. Kim Min-jun bowed to the speaker and to the chamber. He walked back to his seat, collected his notes, and left the chamber. Behind him, the delegates erupted in discussion. What were the humans planning? Why did they care about medical stations more than military alliances? As Kim Min-jun walked through the corridors of the council station, other ambassadors tried to stop him and ask questions. He was polite to everyone, but he did not explain anything more. In his private quarters that evening, Kim Min-jun sent a message back to Earth. It was short and simple. The council session is complete. They think we are going to surrender quickly. Medical aid stations will be prepared. Phase 1 is ready to begin. He sent the message and went to sleep. Tomorrow, he would start the long journey back to human space. There was much work to do in the next 30 days. Captain Park So-young stood on the bridge of her ship, the medical vessel, Mercy's Light. Through the large windows, she could see dozens of other ships moving through space. But these were not the warships that most species would expect to see before a battle. Her fleet was made up of hospital ships, supply transports, and mobile construction platforms. Each ship was painted white, with large red crosses on their sides. The crosses were an old human symbol that meant medical help and protection for the injured. Captain, said her communications officer, Lieutenant Choi Jae-min, we are receiving another message from the Zelani medical fleet. They want to know why we are setting up hospital stations so far from Earth. Park So-young smiled. The Zelani were good people who truly wanted to help. But even they could not understand what humans were planning. Tell them we appreciate their concern, she said. Remind them that our stations will treat anyone who needs help, regardless of which species they belong to. The truth was, Park So-young was following orders that seemed strange even to her. Instead of moving toward Earth to defend their homeworld, her medical fleet was traveling toward the Outer Rim territories where the Vorthak were expected to attack first. On the planet New Sol, massive construction projects were happening day and night. But the humans were not building weapons, factories, or military bases. Instead, they were constructing refugee camps and emergency medical centers. Engineer Kim Tae-hoon supervised one of the largest projects. Thousands of human workers and automated machines were building a facility that could house 50,000 refugees. The buildings were simple but comfortable, with sleeping areas, dining halls, and recreation spaces. The foundation for Medical Center 7 is complete, reported his assistant, Engineer Lee Yeon-woo. We can start installing the surgical suites tomorrow. Kim Tae-hoon nodded as he looked at the construction reports on his electronic tablet. Good. Make sure we have enough power generators for all the life support systems. We need to be ready for any species that might need help. What Kim Tae-hoon did not tell his assistant was that the medical centers were designed to treat Vorthak physiology as well as human physiology. The computer systems had complete medical databases for dozens of species, including detailed information about Vorthak biology that had been gathered by human intelligence services over many years. Meanwhile, in the deep space monitoring stations, strange reports were reaching the Galactic Council. Species with long-range sensors were watching human activities and sending confused messages to their governments. The Aquatic Federation's intelligence service reported that human ships were carrying massive amounts of food synthesizers and water purification systems. The Silicon Brotherhood detected energy signatures that suggested humans were building temporary cities, not military installations. Most puzzling of all, the Avian Republic's spy satellites had recorded humans testing something called universal medical translators. These devices allowed medical equipment to work with the biology of any known species in the galaxy. In the Vorthak Empire's capital city, High Commander Zak Thuron reviewed these intelligence reports with his military advisors. The Vorthak were a proud warrior species who had conquered dozens of worlds through superior technology and ruthless tactics. "The humans are building refugee camps," said Intelligence Officer Carvex, his voice filled with confusion. "Their supply ships carry medical equipment and food, not weapons or ammunition." High Commander Zak Thuron's forearms gestured dismissively. The Vorthak had powerful, muscular bodies with gray-green skin and sharp claws. They were built for war, and they understood only strength. "The humans are cowards," Zak Thuron declared. "They plan to surrender immediately and want to make their defeat as comfortable as possible. This will make our conquest even easier." But some of the younger Vorthak officers were not convinced. Sub-Commander Vel Karn had studied human history and found it confusing. "High Commander," Vel Karn said carefully, "human history shows they have fought wars before. They defeated their own internal conflicts and defended their system against the Raider clans 15 years ago. They are not known for surrendering without fighting." Zak Thuron's eyes glowed red with anger. "Are you questioning my judgment, Sub-Commander?" Vel Karn quickly bowed his head. "No, High Commander." Back in human space, Admiral Li Dongwu was conducting final meetings with his fleet commanders. The conference room aboard his flagship was filled with men and women wearing the blue uniforms of the human space navy. "The medical stations will be fully operational in 18 days, reported Captain Zheng Da-hyun, who commanded the hospital ship fleet. "We have enough supplies to treat major casualties from any engagement." Admiral Li Dongwu studied the tactical displays showing ship positions throughout human territory. His fleet was smaller than the Vorthak invasion force, but it was positioned in ways that seemed strange to outside observers. "What about the evacuation protocols?" he asked. "All civilian populations in potential battle zones have been moved to safe areas," answered Commander Choi Minho. "But sir, our intelligence suggests the Vorthak expect us to simply surrender. They may not understand our true intentions until it is too late." The Admiral nodded. "That is exactly what we want them to think. Have all ship captains review the rules of engagement one more time. I want no mistakes when this begins." The rules of engagement that Admiral Li Dongwu referenced were unlike any military doctrine used by other species in the galaxy. They emphasized protecting civilian lives above all else, even the lives of enemy civilians. They required human forces to offer medical aid to disabled enemy ships and to treat prisoners with dignity and respect. Most other species would consider such rules to be signs of weakness. The Kragan had military laws that demanded the complete destruction of enemy forces. The Vorthak traditionally killed prisoners rather than waste resources on them. As the days passed, more reports reached the Galactic Council about human activities. The Crystalline Federation detected humans testing new communication systems that could broadcast in dozens of languages simultaneously. The Morphic Collective sensed emotional patterns from human space that suggested determination rather than fear. Ambassador Kim Min-jun, who had returned to Earth after his council appearance, spent his time coordinating with medical organizations throughout human space. Dr. Choi Hye-rin, the chief medical officer for the Outer Rim territories, reported that her hospitals were ready to handle casualties from any major conflict. "We have prepared beds and surgical facilities for both human and non-human patients," she told the ambassador during their final briefing. "Our medical teams have trained specifically for treating Vorthak injuries, though we hope such knowledge will not be needed." Kim Min-jun reviewed the timeline one more time. In 12 days, the Vorthak ultimatum would expire. In 12 days, the galaxy would see something it had never seen before. "Doctor," he said, "I want you to personally ensure that our medical ships broadcast neutrality codes on all known frequencies. When this begins, everyone in the galaxy should understand that our medical facilities are open to anyone who needs help." Dr. Choi Hae-rin nodded. "Understood, Ambassador. We will be ready." The Vorthak invasion fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the new Sol system exactly 30 days after their ultimatum was delivered. High Commander Zak Thuron stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Death's Edge, and looked at the tactical displays showing the human colony world ahead. "Sir," reported Navigation Officer Kex Vorth, "we are detecting unusual energy signatures throughout the system. The humans appear to have stationed medical ships between our fleet and their planet." Zak Thuron's 4 eyes focused on the display screen. Indeed, dozens of white ships with red medical crosses were positioned in space, broadcasting neutrality codes on all communication frequencies. "Medical ships?" Zak Thuron laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the bridge. "The humans are even more foolish than I expected. Do they think we will be stopped by hospital ships? Grandrick. But as his fleet moved deeper into the system, more strange things became apparent. The human military ships were present, but they were positioned in defensive formations around civilian areas, rather than advancing to meet the Vorthak fleet. Most confusing of all, the humans were broadcasting messages on open channels. "Attention, Vorthak fleet," came a calm human voice. "This is Admiral Lee Dong-woo of the Human Space Navy. We have medical facilities standing by to assist any vessels requiring emergency aid. Please respond if you have wounded personnel who need immediate treatment." The entire Vorthak bridge crew fell silent. In all their years of conquest, no enemy had ever offered to help treat their wounded before a battle even began. "They mock us," growled Weapons Officer Trak Ghoul. "Shall I target their medical ships first?" "No," Zak Thuron decided after a moment. "Ignore the medical vessels. Focus on their military targets. We will show them what real power looks like." Meanwhile, throughout the galaxy, millions of beings were watching the battle unfold through news broadcasts and sensor networks. In the Galactic Council chambers, an emergency session had been called to observe the situation. The Zelani ambassador watched the displays with growing confusion. "The human medical ships are maintaining position, even though they are directly in the battle zone," she observed. "Why do they not retreat to safety?" Ambassador Kim Min-jun, who had returned from Earth specifically for this session, sat quietly in the human delegation section. He watched the displays without showing any emotion, even as the first Vorthak weapons fire lit up the screens. Dr. Choi Hae-rin commanded the medical ship Healing Light, positioned directly between the Vorthak fleet and a group of civilian evacuation transports. Through her ship's sensors, she could see the massive Vorthak vessels approaching with their weapons charging. "All medical teams to emergency stations," she announced over her ship's communication system. "Prepare for incoming casualties. Remember, we treat anyone who needs help, regardless of which species they belong to." The first exchange of weapons fire began when the Vorthak opened fire on a human military patrol. But what happened next shocked every observer in the galaxy. The human ships did not return fire with full power. Instead, they used precise, targeted shots that disabled the Vorthak ship's weapons and engines without destroying the vessels completely. When the first Vorthak ship was disabled and began drifting in space, human rescue ships immediately moved toward it. "Disabled Vorthak vessel. "This is Captain Park So-young of the medical ship Mercy's Light," came the broadcast. "We are approaching to render emergency assistance. Please prepare to receive medical teams." On the bridge of the disabled Vorthak ship, Sub-Commander Vel Karn stared at his communication displays in disbelief. "Commander, the humans are requesting permission to board our ship to help our wounded crew members." The Vorthak ship commander, a veteran warrior named Harklex, had never heard of such a thing. "It must be a trick," he said. "They want to board our ship, to capture it." But when the human medical teams actually arrived, they were clearly medical personnel, not soldiers. They carried medical equipment and supplies, not weapons. When they found injured Vorthak crew members, they immediately began providing treatment. Dr. Kim Sung-ho, leading one of the medical teams, worked quickly to stabilize a Vorthak engineer who had been hurt when his console exploded. The Vorthak had different biology than humans. But Kim Sung-ho had studied their medical needs carefully. "Your friend will be fine," Kim Sung-ho told the other Vorthak crew members as he worked. "The injury looks serious, but we can treat it easily. He will be back to full health in a few days." The Vorthak warriors watched in stunned silence as the human doctor saved their comrade's life. This was beyond their understanding. Enemies were supposed to kill each other, not heal each other. Back in the main battle zone, the pattern continued. Human ships would disable Vorthak vessels with precision strikes, then immediately send medical and rescue teams to help the crews. The Vorthak found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed more concerned with saving lives than taking them. High Commander Zak Thuron watched his tactical displays with growing frustration. His fleet was larger and more powerful than the human fleet, but his ships were being systematically disabled rather than destroyed. Worse, his own crews were being rescued and treated by the very humans they were trying to conquer. "Sir," reported Communications Officer Yek Sarn, "we are receiving reports from 17 of our ships that human medical teams are currently treating our wounded personnel. The humans are providing excellent care and have asked for nothing in return." "This is impossible," Zak Thuron roared. "No species fights this way. It makes no sense." Representative Jung Da-hyun, speaking for humanity in the Galactic Council chambers, addressed the confused delegates who were watching the battle unfold. "Honored representatives," she said calmly, "what you are seeing is humanity's approach to warfare. We fight to protect life, not to destroy it. We believe that even our enemies deserve medical care and dignity." The Kragan delegate stood up angrily. "This is weakness," he declared. "The humans cannot win a war by healing their enemies." But on the tactical displays, it was becoming clear that the human strategy was working. Vorthak ships that had been disabled and then helped by human medical teams were not returning to battle. Instead, many were broadcasting surrender signals or requesting permission to withdraw from the fight. The psychological impact on the Vorthak fleet was devastating. These were warriors who had expected glorious battle and death. Instead, they found an enemy that defeated them and then offered them medical care and kindness. Engineer Kim Tae-hoon, monitoring the battle from his command center on New Seoul, received constant updates from the medical stations throughout the system. "Sir," reported his assistant Lee Yun-woo, "Medical Station 7 is treating 43 Vorthak personnel. Medical Station 12 has 67 patients, including both humans and Vorthak. All reports indicate that the injured are receiving excellent care." Kim Tae-hoon nodded as he updated the supply distribution network. "Make sure all stations have everything they need, and prepare additional facilities. I think we are going to have many more patients before this is over." The battle continued for 6 more hours, but its outcome was no longer in doubt. The Vorthak fleet, confused and demoralized by an enemy that saved their lives instead of taking them, began to withdraw toward the edge of the star system. As news of the battle spread throughout the galaxy, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Species that had refused to help humanity now began sending support and supplies. The Zelani Healer Collective dispatched their finest medical ships, Even the neutral crystalline Federation began transmitting tactical information about Vorthak fleet movements to human forces. 3 days after the first battle at New Sol, the war had changed in ways that no one in the galaxy had expected. In medical facilities throughout human space, something unprecedented was happening. Dr. Choi Hae-rin walked through the medical ward of her hospital ship, checking on her patients. Half of them were human crew members who had been injured during the battle. The other half were Vorthak warriors who had expected to die in combat, only to wake up in clean hospital beds receiving excellent medical care. "How is our patient in bed 7? She asked Nurse Lim Soo-jin. "The Vorthak engineer is recovering well," Nurse Lim replied. "His burns are healing faster than expected. He asked me to tell you that he has never seen medical care this good, even in Vorthak military hospitals." Dr. Choi Hae-rin smiled. "Please make sure he knows he is welcome to stay, as long as he needs to recover completely." What neither the doctor nor the nurse mentioned was that this conversation was being recorded and transmitted throughout Vorthak space by their own communication networks. Vorthak society was built on strength and conquest, but their warriors were witnessing something that challenged everything they believed about warfare. In the Vorthak detention facilities on New Sol, Commander Choi Min-ho was conducting his daily inspection. But these were unlike any prisoner camps in galactic history. The captured Vorthak warriors lived in comfortable rooms with entertainment systems, exercise facilities, and communication access to contact their families. "Commander," reported Security Chief Park Jun-ho, "the Vorthak prisoners have requested to help with the reconstruction of the damaged spaceport. They say they want to contribute something positive while they are here." Commander Choi Min-ho was not surprised. This was the 4th group of Vorthak prisoners who had volunteered to help with civilian projects. "Approve their request. Make sure they have proper safety equipment." The news of Vorthak warriors working alongside humans to repair civilian infrastructure spread throughout the galaxy like wildfire. The Galactic News Network broadcast images of former enemies working together to rebuild what the war had damaged. High Commander Zak Thuron, aboard his flagship in deep space, received these reports with growing rage and confusion. His invasion fleet had been forced to retreat after losing more than half their ships. But not a single Vorthak warrior had been killed by human forces. Instead, hundreds of his soldiers were living comfortably in human facilities, many of them refusing to be repatriated. "Sir," reported his intelligence officer Carvex, "we have received another message from Sub-Commander Vel Karn. He is requesting permanent asylum in human space. He says he wants to study human philosophy and help establish peaceful relations between our species." Zak Thuron slammed his 4 fists on his command console. "Vel Karn was one of our best officers. How have the humans corrupted him with their weakness?" But Carvex hesitated before answering. He had been reading all the reports from their soldiers in human captivity, and the pattern was disturbing. "Sir, perhaps it is not weakness. The humans defeated our fleet without killing our people. They have shown they can be merciful without being weak." The High Commander's eyes glowed red with fury. But before he could respond, another alarm sounded throughout the ship. "Sir," called Communications Officer Yex Sarn, "we are receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. The Zelani Healer Collective has formally allied with humanity. They are sending medical ships and supplies to support human operations." This was devastating news. The Zelani were respected throughout the galaxy for their medical knowledge and their commitment to peace. If they were supporting humanity, it meant the galactic community was choosing sides. In the Galactic Council chambers, the session was unlike anything in the Council's 1,000-year history. Representative after representative was speaking in support of humanity's conduct during the war. The Aquatic Federation's ambassador, speaking through their water-filled translation tank, addressed the assembly. "The humans have shown us a new way to resolve conflicts. They defeat their enemies and then heal them. They prove that strength and compassion can exist together." The Silicon Brotherhood, a species that communicated through electronic signals, sent their thoughts directly to the translation systems. We have studied human behavior patterns during this conflict. Their actions are consistent and purposeful. Even the proud avian republics, who had always prided themselves on their military traditions, were reconsidering their own approaches to warfare. Their representative, a tall, bird-like being with brilliant blue feathers, spoke with obvious admiration. "The humans have achieved something we thought impossible," the avian declared. "They have won a battle by making their enemies into friends. This is not weakness. This is a strength we have never seen before." Ambassador Kim Min-jun listened to all of this with quiet satisfaction, but he knew the real work was just beginning. The Vorthok Empire would not give up easily, and there were other aggressive species in the galaxy who might see humanity's compassion as an opportunity to attack. Meanwhile, on New Seoul, engineer Kim Tae-hoon was overseeing an expansion of the refugee facilities. The original camps had been designed for human civilians, but now they were housing Vorthak families as well. Many Vorthak warriors had requested that their families be allowed to join them in human space. "The housing units for the Vorthok families will be completed next week," reported his assistant Lee Yun-woo. "We have designed them to accommodate their larger size and different environmental needs." Kim Tae-hoon reviewed the construction plans on his tablet. "Good. Make sure each family unit has access to communication systems so they can stay in contact with relatives in Vorthok space. We want them to feel welcome here." What Kim Tae-hoon did not mention was that these Vorthok families were becoming powerful ambassadors for human values. Their messages home were changing opinions throughout the Vorthok Empire, one family at a time. Captain Park So-young received new orders, while her medical fleet was resupplying at a human space station. Instead of preparing for more battles, she was being assigned to establish permanent medical stations along the border between human and Vorthak space. "Captain," said her medical officer, Dr. Kim Sung-ho, "these new medical stations will be available to serve both human and Vorthak civilians. Are we really planning to provide free medical care to everyone in this region?" Captain Park So-young smiled. "Doctor, that is exactly what we are planning. Admiral Lee Dong-woo believes that good medical care will do more for peace than any number of warships. The strategy was working better than anyone had hoped." Vorthak civilians who received medical care at human facilities returned to their homes with stories of human kindness and competence. Vorthak warriors who had been treated well during their captivity became advocates for peaceful relations. Most importantly, the younger generation of Vorthak was questioning their society's emphasis on conquest and violence. Sub-Commander Velkarn, now living in human space, had become a popular speaker whose broadcasts reached millions of young Vorthak. "I was taught that strength meant the ability to destroy," Velkarn said during one of his speeches. "The humans taught me that true strength means the ability to heal and protect. They defeated our fleet, but then they saved our lives." As the fourth week of the conflict drew to a close, intelligence reports reaching the Galactic Council indicated that the Vorthak Empire was facing internal problems. For the first time in their history, large numbers of Vorthak citizens were questioning their government's policies of aggression and expansion. The Crystalline Federation, which had maintained strict neutrality for centuries, made an unprecedented decision. They began sharing their advanced sensor technology with human forces, providing early warning of any potential Vorthak counterattacks. "The humans have demonstrated that warfare need not result in permanent hatred between species," the Crystalline Federation announced. "We choose to support their efforts to bring peace to this region of the galaxy." Admiral Lee Dong-woo, reviewing the strategic situation from his flagship, realized that humanity had achieved something remarkable. They had not just won a military victory. They had begun to change the way the entire galaxy thought about conflict resolution. "Sir," reported his intelligence officer, Lieutenant Commander Kim Da-sol, "we are receiving surrender requests from 12 more Vorthak commanders. They are requesting permission to land on human worlds and discuss permanent peace agreements." The Admiral nodded thoughtfully. "Approve their requests. Make sure they receive full diplomatic honors when they arrive." and prepare our best medical facilities to treat any wounded personnel they might have with them. The final battle of what historians would later call the Compassion War took place not on a battlefield, but in the medical bay of a human hospital ship. Vorthak Emperor Grak-Thulon, the supreme ruler of the Vorthak Empire, lay unconscious in a medical bed while human doctors worked to save his life. The emperor had been injured when his personal ship suffered an accident while traveling to negotiate with the human fleet. His own medical officers had declared his condition hopeless, but human medical teams had volunteered to attempt a dangerous surgery that might save him. Dr. Choi Hae-rin led the surgical team, working for 18 straight hours to repair damage to the emperor's primary heart. Vorthak anatomy was complex, and one mistake could kill the most powerful being in the Vorthak Empire. "His vital signs are stabilizing," announced surgical assistant Dr. Kim Min-seo. "The artificial heart valve is functioning normally." Outside the surgery, a crowd had gathered that included both human and Vorthak officials. Admiral Lee Dongwoo stood next to High Commander Zak Thuran, both of them watching the medical displays that showed the emperor's condition. "Your doctors are risking their careers to save our emperor," Zak Thuran said quietly. "In our culture, we would not do this for an enemy leader." Admiral Lee Dongwoo looked at the Vorthak commander with understanding. "In our culture, there are no enemies in a medical facility. There are only patients who need help." This conversation was being broadcast throughout both human and Vorthak space, where millions of citizens were watching and learning about each other's values for the first time. When Emperor Grak-Thulon finally woke up 3 days later, the first face he saw belonged to Dr. Choi Hae-rin, who was checking his recovery progress. "How do you feel, Your Majesty?" she asked in carefully practiced Vorthak language. The emperor, a massive being whose species was known for their aggressive nature, looked at the small human doctor with confusion and something that might have been wonder. "Why?" he asked simply. "Why did you save my life?" "I came here to conquer your people." Dr. Choi Hae-rin smiled gently. "Because that is what doctors do. We heal people who are hurt, regardless of who they are or what they have done." This moment, recorded by news cameras and transmitted throughout the galaxy, became the turning point that ended the war. The emperor of the Vorthak Empire, saved by human medical skill and compassion, declared a permanent ceasefire and requested formal peace negotiations. In the Galactic Council chambers 2 weeks later, the largest assembly in the Council's history gathered to witness the signing of the New Sol Peace Accords. Representatives from over 300 species were present, many of them attending specifically to honor humanity's unique approach to warfare. Ambassador Kim Min-jun stood at the central podium, but he was not alone. Beside him stood Sub-Commander Vel Karn, who had become the Vorthak Empire's new chief diplomatic officer, and Emperor Grak-Thulon himself, still recovering from his surgery, but determined to be present for this historic moment. "Honored delegates," Kim Min-jun began. "The conflict between humanity and the Vorthak Empire has ended not in conquest, but in understanding. We have learned that the greatest victories come not from destroying our enemies, but from healing them and making them our friends." Emperor Grak-Thulon stepped forward slowly, his movements still careful due to his recent surgery. When he spoke, his voice carried to every corner of the vast chamber. "The Vorthak Empire has conquered many worlds through strength and fear," he said. "But we have never conquered anyone's heart until the humans conquered ours through kindness and medical care. Today, we formally request to join the Galactic Council as a peaceful member species." The applause that followed lasted for 10 minutes and included representatives from species that had been enemies of the Vorthak for centuries. The peace negotiations had been unlike any in galactic history. Instead of demanding territory or resources, the humans had asked for commitments to medical cooperation, educational exchanges, and joint relief missions for species affected by natural disasters. Representative Jung Da-hyun read the key provisions of the peace agreement to the Assembly. The Vorthak Empire agrees to establish joint medical research facilities with humanity. Both species will work together to develop improved medical care for all galactic species. Vorthak military forces will be retrained as rescue and relief teams for emergency response throughout the galaxy. What the agreement really represented was a fundamental change in how the Vorthok thought about their role in the galaxy. Instead of being conquerors, they would become protectors and helpers. Commander Choi Min-ho, who had overseen the Vorthak detention facilities, reported on the most surprising development of all. Over 4,000 Vorthak warriors have requested to remain in human space to study our medical and relief techniques. They want to return to their own worlds as teachers and healers. Captain Park So-young, whose medical fleet had started the transformation of Vorthak thinking, was assigned to lead a new joint human-Vorthak medical service that would respond to emergencies throughout the galaxy. Her first mission would be to help the Aquatic Federation deal with a disease outbreak that was affecting their water worlds. "We will have both human and Vorthak medical teams working together," she explained to the Galactic Council. "Former enemies will now save lives, side by side." Engineer Kim Tae-hoon had been promoted to head a new Galactic Relief Construction Corps that would build emergency facilities for species affected by wars, natural disasters, or other crises. His teams included engineers from dozens of species, all working together to help others. "We are designing standard emergency facilities that can be quickly built anywhere in the galaxy," he reported. "Each facility will include medical centers, temporary housing, and communication systems to help displaced populations." But perhaps the most important change was happening in the minds of young beings throughout the galaxy. The war had been broadcast and studied by billions of students from hundreds of different species. They had seen that there was an alternative to traditional warfare. The Kragan military academies, which had always taught that victory required total destruction of enemies, began adding new courses about strategic compassion and victory through healing. The proud warrior culture was learning that there were different kinds of strength. The Zelani Healer Collective established new medical schools in cooperation with human universities. These schools would train medical personnel from all species to work together during emergencies. Even the ancient and mysterious Crystalline Federation announced that they would share more of their advanced technology with species that committed to peaceful conflict resolution. The Galactic Council formally passed the Humanity Resolution, which recognized humans as the official mediators for all major interspecies conflicts. When disputes arose between member species, human negotiators would be called in to help find peaceful solutions. Ambassador Kim Min-jun accepted this responsibility on behalf of all humanity. "We are honored by your trust," he said. "We promise to approach every conflict with the same principles that guided us in our war with the Vorthak Empire. We will fight to protect all life, heal all wounds, and build bridges between all peoples." As the ceremony concluded, Emperor Grak Thulon made one final announcement that surprised everyone, including the human delegation. "The Vorthak Empire wishes to establish a permanent joint colony with humanity," he declared. "A world where our children can grow up together, learning from each other, and working together. We will call this world New Hope." The idea was approved unanimously by the Galactic Council, and construction of New Hope Colony began within months. It became the first truly integrated multi-species settlement in galactic history, where former enemies lived and worked together as neighbors and friends. Dr. Choi Hae-rin, who had saved the Emperor's life, was chosen to head the medical facilities on New Hope. Her first patient was a young Vorthak child who had been injured while playing with human children. As she treated the small patient, she reflected on how much the galaxy had changed. The Compassion War, as historians named it, had lasted only 6 weeks, but its effects would reshape galactic civilization for centuries to come. Humanity had proven that the greatest weapon in the universe was not a gun or a bomb, but a kind heart and skilled hands ready to heal.